Okay, are we ready to go? Or do we wait for Stephen? What's Thank you. Well, let's call the meeting to order on Finance Committee meeting for the 22nd of January, 4 p.m. We'll do a slight out of order here, but approval of minutes of the meetings from the 11th and the 18th. Have any comments on the minutes? Any suggested changes? None. Hearing none. Can I get a motion to approve? Second. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. Public comment. Anybody in the audience that? Mr. Dickler, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Would you like me to go to a microphone?
I think so, because I suspect this is being recorded and certainly recorded, if not broadcast. Okay. Maybe, Chris, could you?
You gotta stand there.
Let's bring the table. Why don't we just move the tables a little closer?
Okay.
Libby, we appreciate your versatility. Great. Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry to create so much disruption. My name is Howard Dickler, for those of you who don't know me. I have two comments and a request. The comments are related to the discussion we had on December 14th when we discussed the citizens article that I submitted. So at that meeting, the committee contended that the town had plenty of money, by which they meant they could borrow $500 million because they had a good credit rating. I just wanted stated for the record that there's a world of difference between cash in hand and borrowing, especially when your ability to borrow is constrained by needing the approval of the voters. My second comment relates to the fact that I believe that the FinCom, as the other towns commissions, serve the voters. That is, the voters elect the Board of Selectmen, and the Board of Selectmen appoint the FinCom. And I just have to comment that I fail to understand how it serves the voters not to raise $30 million a year that they do not pay for, but could use for things that benefit. My request is related to the fact that my citizens article was found to be illegal by the town attorney, so it is my desire to substitute a sense of town meeting motion for that article, and I would like to distribute copies to you so that the committee can review them and comment.
Sure. Appreciate that. That's great. You want any dialogue? Does anybody want to speak to what Howard, Mr. Dickler had to say, or? Well, let me say, I for one hope that you, and you clearly will bring this up at town meeting. I hope you do, and I hope there's an interesting and good discussion about it. You know, I think that we all like free stuff, and I think that there's actually, from my perspective, I'm not speaking now for the committee, there's some appeal to trying to deal with some of these things, and I suspect, you know, a catalyst for that may be what the overriding bill is for South Beach Street, and, you know, we may turn out to have a lot of, you know, significant capital needs. I think, though, that it's Anyway, it's very hard to look at something that basically disenfranchises 85% of our taxpayers, puts a cost onto them, asks town meeting to basically get free money, and asks for a rational discussion about it. So, I mean, I think that's, I've heard it described as the Robin Hood Citizens article, and so, but, you know, I think there's again, from my perspective, I think you've done a nice job of enlightening many people in the town of the fact that we have a lot of capital needs. You know, though I refer back to what Joe said at our meeting, this may not be an issue of money, it may just be an issue of political will to deal with these, you know, these various issues. And so, anyway, again, I for one am appreciative of the fact that actually you've got this discussion going. It'll be interesting to see where it goes on town meeting floor.
Okay.
So, how does this actually happen, though? What actually?
It's nothing that we have to do. I mean,
We still go forward with whatever it is we want to do relative to the citizens.
that is correct.
And then you can do whatever
Yeah.
else.
Irregardless of the fact that the town council has indicated it's not a legal or whatever, we will to the motion attach our recommendation to it. So, and obviously the way this works, you can introduce this on town meeting floor and engender a discussion. So, anyway, so thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Richard, Jason, you were on the committee, right? Would you guys like to join us up here since you're going to be the substitute for Stephen at this point?
I didn't prepare for that.
Well, we'll turn it over to Mr. McEachern and then.
Surprise.
I'll be happy to help however I can.
So what would be, is just to start off, so the rest of the FinCom knows, who all is on the committee?
On Capcom,
Yes.
everyone, of course, in today's agenda, you received the packet that is the fiscal 2019 capital project recommendation from Capcom. If you turn to page 1 of 9, the committee is halfway down the page. So Stephen Welch is chair, Peter Kaiser Jr., Richard Huzzy, who's present, Jason Bridges is our rep from the BOS, who's present, Christy Kickham, Nat Lowell, and myself as the FinCom rep.
Great.
That was the easy Q&A.
So without sort of belaboring the process, could you take us through just the process you used and so that we get to a common platform with some of your recommendations?
So from a process standpoint, with the department heads and the finance department of the town and Capcom, it was, for the most part, it started as any other year where all of the department heads, sorry, I'm stuck. We should get longer necks and longer microphones. There we go. So the process was with the department heads, they pulled together their request as any year, but this year be it different that they were utilizing new forms to really validate a lot of the requests, to back up every number, to put down reasons for, these were new, I would say templates is the best word to use, not forms, but templates in that going forward, all of the works of a department manager, once it's keyed into their system, is keyed into the system that we as a committee are using and that the finance department are using. You know, we had a joint meeting some months ago with the BOS, Capcom, and FinCom, which we got into our own thoughts and methodology on how we were making decisions, where we thought the the pluses and the minuses of each of the projects from cost standpoint to, was it part of an overall plan? Are we just trying to replace something that's already in existence? Are we buying something that's new? Does it, consist of new employees, new operating expenses? So really a culmination of my 4 or 5 years on the Capcom, we really saw a joint effort into producing templates for the future that really got to the financial issues at hand. What you see in front of you now, if you want to just go ahead and turn to page 2 of 9, we had 67 requests from department heads. The first blush, the first pass asked for, this is just for fiscal year 2019, $86.5 million in requests. And that was requests that were, at that point, really scrutinized internally with the town. They were brought forward in the CAP committee. At the end of the process this year, and I think I mentioned last meeting or 2 meetings ago, that our meetings probably went up by 40%, the frequency and the length. When all said and done, we came up with a budget that is almost $66 million. So it is about $20 million short of the request. Some of that is the facilities, the DPW facilities project was pretty much cut. We also had a building that was retracted at the airport, and they make up the bulk of the items that are not in your numbers that you see here now. To really make sense of where the money is coming from, we wanted to keep everything segregated, into general fund accounts and also the enterprise fund accounts. So if you peel back the $66 million, you'll see that 31 and change comes from general fund accounts and 34 and change million comes from enterprise funds. You also have what Stephen and Brian then did after the process, or after the Capcom process. They went back off to the side and really wanted to focus on funding sources, where monies would actually come from. It's all good to talk about a number, but if you have no idea how it's going to be funded or used, then why suggest it? So that really is the culmination of that starts on page 3. So you can see what of the general funds are capital exclusions as opposed to debt exclusions or free cash, so on and so forth. I don't want to read this verbatim, but what we're really trying to do is pull together the most thorough report that we can provide to not only the FinCom ourselves, but the BOS, but the town's, voters. In my tenure, this, as I mentioned, is the most thorough capital committee report that we have ever pulled together. And I think it's very important. We spoke with department heads not once, twice, sometimes 3 times. We've actually visited sites. We split off into groups, as we do with FinCom. We split off into groups and visited the DPW or the airport or our island home. And I'm not excluding other departments. But we not to be an advocate for that department, but really to understand exactly what the requests are, to physically look at maybe a piece of equipment or to understand what is happening below grade. Looking at the report, if you look at page 4, what page 4 does, it's kind of lumps in anything that's over $1 million or more. That's all that exhibit provides you with the specific requests and department number. And that's important if you look at the top of page 4. The first item is the Nantucket DPW Facility Improvement Project. Well, that number in the far left column is the internal number that the town utilizes for, in a sense, to inventory all of the requests. So we can refer to it and it compiles behind the scenes. So page 4 is basically anything over $1 million. Page 5 really gets to, what happens if we do some of these debt exclusion type items. What would it do to the tax rate? And once again, I don't want to go verbatim, but you can see what it would incrementally change our tax rate going forward for the near future. Statement of procedures, which starts on page 7. It talks about what we did. As we mentioned, department liaisons, I mentioned that a few seconds ago. Rankings and prioritization. We know we put a lot of effort as a committee, and I think I'll be the first to say, why are we doing this? At the beginning, it got to be tedious, but it got us to think as individuals as opposed to as a committee. And then it, I think, culminated as a committee. It was painstaking. That's a positive word. That means it used our intelligence. But it really did. It focused, I can say, as a person who was questioning at the beginning, it focused my attention much more specific to each individual request of the 67. We did think about each request. It wasn't just a number on a page. Then you have your SIP request form, which we, as I mentioned, we created this year. It's another new form. You hate to create new forms for department heads. Each and every year they see something different. It gives them an opportunity to make a mistake, just from a clerical standpoint. But I think it now going forward, should take hold. The rationale database, a lot of words there. But that's something that you should, read this report at your leisure to really, really understand it. Page 8 I've kind of already described in my discussion. Page 9 basically tells us, we're doing all this not for today and not for tomorrow. We've gone through this whole process and project and creating this plan for the future. Not just 1 year, not just a 10-year program, but if we look at it the same way each and every year, there's continuity, especially more importantly for the finance department and the department heads. I mean, capital committee members come and go, but I think going forward, this should better serve our finance department and our department heads. And then you get into the appendices, which basically show you each and every request with the planet number that relates back to what I refer to as an inventory. It gives you a brief description, what department it is, what the item is itself, what their requests were, and what we finalized as an approved number, which is in the far right column. So Appendix A is by department and by account, and it goes on A1, A2, and there's 4 pages of Appendix A. Once again, it's all by department. And if you go to Appendix B, it's the capital request by funding source. So now we've taken that number and showed you where finance department and et al. Are actually suggesting that how we fund each individual approved request or recommended request from the Capcom. And then we give some definitions, Appendix C, which provides all of the Commonwealth and the town's definitions of what is meant by capital plans, both from state, federal, local. It gives you some of the words that we're using, but it puts it down as a definition so you can revert back to it if you forgot what Proposition 2.5 is all about. And then the very last Appendix D is basically a tax rate history going from 1981. Looks like we have some from 1971 when there wasn't everything was residential. So that is as general as I can be. And I think maybe if there's any questions about specific items, maybe it's items that we did not consider or did not recommend. We heard about one of those last meeting, which was under the school committee, which it was myself who had a problem with just the timing of why do we want to spend $500,000 on taking a building where the admin staff is residing now and not put them where the plan, where we sold the plan to the town and to the residents. It was to incorporate those office spaces, plural, into NES, which is the elementary school. So it may seem trivial, it's only $500,000, but there was a thought process that went into the approval. And when there was a change, well, you got to realize, why is there a change? What happened? Did our number of students explode? Did our number of tenants within a building, increase? Did we lose the community school or not? What's happening? So we scrutinized more, I would say, each item's description and request in lieu of the money, because $500,000 at $66 million is not an awful lot of money, but I'm going to shut up and take a drink of water because I brought a lot of that. I don't know if Richard or
I would
Jason-
just like to add that that was a brilliant summary, off the cuff, if you will. You did very well. I've been on this committee for 4 years, and I think this is the first time we've presented to you a work product that is extensive. And I know your first question is, did you rubber stamp everything? What did you turn down? I think you'll find it in here, in these 20 pages. But I think Peter's hit the highlights and done very well. And I'm very grateful that you're here.
No, I definitely, I mean, in years past, you hear about the rubber stamp, and I think we all threw that away, for sure.
And like Peter, I was an early skeptic, although I didn't voice it. I was wondering what we were doing, but when I see the finished product, I think Stephen can be justly proud of the tremendous amount of work he put into this.
Yeah. In the finance department.
Yes, absolutely, the finance department.
I have a question, I think it may be for Brian, but I don't know. On the funding sources, in years past, when we've had borrowing, a project of some sort that required borrowing, did we do a property tax override or a debt exclusion? I mean, I thought the glossary was really good, but I was just sort of curious. Is this what we normally do, is debt exclusions?
Typically for projects we do debt exclusions so that they sunset and we're not raising them once the amortization for the borrower comes back.
Okay, so those will tie to the votes on the warrant,
Those, yes.
and they're for a particular project, certain amount of money. When the project's done and the bonds are paid off, it drops out of the tax rate.
Goes that, drop that, goes away.
Okay.
Question. On the projects that you didn't fund, the feedback that you gave was either that you weren't interested in funding it, or did you tell them to come back next year? Like, how did you handle that process?
Well, as I mentioned, the majority of those came from the TPW facility plan, which was originally came in at 18. It's coming now at 3.5, so the delta is 15, plus there was 2.3 that was an airport outbuilding that was actually pulled by the airport. So those two were easy. That almost makes up the entire amount of the cut. So if you give me 2 seconds, because I've actually highlighted them in blue. Let's see. If you look at page A1 of 4, second item down, the annual facility accessibility upgrades. There was a $500,000. No, excuse me, that's on $500,000. That's 50,000, thank you. And that got cut. And that's anywhere the town is actually working and making plans and changes that they would make everything accessible. Well, there was already monies in projects in the work. It's not that we're cutting accessibility items. It's already been budgeted for this year. So it wasn't necessary to add more monies for something that's already been approved and working. And the same with the 5 or 6 items down, the annual facility lighting updates. And these were all new, as I have an opportunity here from DPW. Rob McNeil wants to literally each and every year spend money anywhere from roof repairs, utility updates, accessibility, paving, bathrooms, each and every year. Because we, the town, I forget how many buildings do we have, Brian, 160?
Around that 160.
Is that, it's very important, and I think, Doctor, for you to understand, it's very important that we all understand what we own, what our current inventory is. So this may seem like, well, some people may think this is a lot of money, but when you look at all those fixed assets, they're going to take annual upgrades, each and every one of those. And Rob has brought that to the table when the town has hired him. And so 2 of those are $50,000 a piece, so there's $100,000. We did cut one of his requests, which was $230,000, which is a loader. We have one. We felt at this point one's enough. I guess it depends on how deep the water was on South Beach Street. There, Terry, I just mumbled. But that was with purpose. We also, there was a $60,000 vehicle that they would love to have, and we thought at the present time, Joanne, that this was something we could hold off on. So both of those eventually will come back to us, whether it be next year or the year after, but they will. We actually like that operations vehicle because they wanted to outfit that vehicle with a lot of connectivity. So they could be driving around instead of going back to the office to look at maybe an AutoCAD file or an ArcGIS file. They'd have it handy in their truck, almost like a police officer who would have, a radio and connectivity. We like that, but of course we need the CMOM and we need a lot of that GPS and mapping to get us to that point, and these are all good things. How fortuitous Libby, how fortuitous our timing with South Beach Street and related projects. Parks Master Plan, we cut that from $100,000 to $50,000. And right now I'm drawing a blank on why, so please don't ask. Richard or Jason, do you remember what we did? On the parks?
He was connected to Tom Nevers.
Good, thank you. On page 2A2, Central Office, you heard me speak about that. I will be meeting with Michael to go over why. Once again, I like to know, since I was part of the pre-selling of the project and then the construction committee, and then on this group and Capcom, things have changed, so I wanted to really not just, once again, rubber stamp because it's the school committee and they do a great job. The garage on page A3, this is the garage out at the airport. This was pulled by the airport by Tom. That's 2.3. If you go down about 2/3 of the way, you'll see some smaller cuts on like town water to plant and staff housing. It was $1 million request, and we cut out about $400,000 because David came back and said, I don't need it all. So that's where a department head is doing their due diligence and actually changing pricing as they're going. Permanent fencing around the sewer plant, we thought that at this point in time could be rectified with a nice gate or more security at the entrance instead of trying to put a perimeter around the entire plant at $1 million. I think in light of where we are, it's a kind of a good thing. Then you look at the bottom, the couple of the upgrades. We robbed Peter to pay Paul. If you look at the last 3 items, Surfside Road, area sewer system, that went up, but yet we took the money from the wastewater treatment facility. So it's just same dollars, 2 different projects, but they're kind of melded together. So it's really not a cut.
Peter, there's actually 2 others where the
Yep.
recommendation went up from the request.
Since I didn't highlight them, which one of those show?
It's on page A1, the Sparks Avenue sidewalk, Surfside to Milestone went from $680,000 to 1.08. And then
Yep.
on page A3, seasonal hold room expansions, structured
Good.
awning went from
Yep.
350 to 600.
So we'll work backwards. At the airport, they have to increase the size of their holding room before someone, actually it's after the gate, and you're waiting to get on the plane. This is for the seasonal area, not for gate 1. That has to increase, and I believe Libby O'Brien, that's an FAA requirement on size and probably capacity. They had priced it out as a probably aluminum frame, Eisenine curtain type of a holding room outside on the tarmac that they needed to beef up its structure in order to comply. So in doing so, it did go from 350, I think, up to 8 and then back down to 650, right? Good. What a memory. What day is it? On the first one, we actually, in conjunction with Surfside as a property manager, and excuse me, not Surfside, Sparks Ave, near the bank, near the post office, near the Rotary, we have a sewer line that for years has infiltrated businesses and homes for different reasons. And this in conjunction with a project that NGrid is doing, we wanted to increase and kind of develop, put both projects in together to get it done and get it done right. So that's why we increased in that area. And if there's something more specific than that, I know it was between NGrid and the Sparks. We have a lot of sewer work where you have a calcification of grease in the line that hardens, provides major blockages, and then it runs into people's residences, businesses. So this is really to clean up an area that has been problematic for years.
Talking about the sidewalk?
1911?
Yeah.
So we're talking about the sidewalk, so you let me go sewer all that time?
No, 1911, yeah.
Yeah, 1911, Brian.
Was it
There is
A3?
this grant. There was, when they originally submitted it, they had not included the $400,000 complete street grants that we may be eligible for. We're not entirely
Yes.
sure at this point, so the Capcom put the request at the actual full value, because otherwise,
Would be short.
we
Great,
would be
thank you.
Potentially, so we believe we will get the complete street grant, which is $400,000, but when it's initially presented, that was omitted, so this is reflective of the actual total project.
So are we gonna do the project even if we don't get the grant?
That's a decision for town administration, not me. Not to sidestep the answer, but
But you did. Actually, my question wasn't going to be, did you rubber stamp all of this? I'm actually much more interested in whether you guys think you've got a handle on the 10 years or the out years. I understand 10 years from now you don't, but, what's 20 and 21 look like, and how much integrity in the process do you think you've got so that,
Well, I think if Stephen were here, he'd say hopefully the same thing that I'm going to say, that we put 85%, 90% of our effort into fiscal year 2019, just more because of the process and procedure and the learning curve from our perspective and the department heads. That's the best answer I could probably give you, David.
I agree with that.
so is 20 a black box?
No.
No. I think you'll see some big ticket items like the DPW facility coming back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
certainly there are other buildings on the horizon.
And I believe Julia passed out at our beginning here the 10-year projection.
Yeah. And as I'm sure you know, the projections by department don't tie to what the report indicates.
Well, they should mostly, where they don't tie is, I think there was a little mistake on my end. I forgot to push out 2 FGs.
Okay. Yeah, that's it's $30 million that doesn't tie.
And then airport has had a few revisions.
Okay.
But for the most part, everything else should.
Okay. Other questions people have?
Will we hear more about Old South Road in the DPW presentation? Do the capital pieces get covered in the departmental, I'm trying to remember from last year, in some detail as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure an Old South Road, you guys gonna do that as part of town administration on Saturday? Your budget? We're not bringing Andrew and people in here to talk transportation. I know, but I think Chris has probably got some,
Well,
I mean, I think we can do, with DPW, we can talk to Rob about,
Or I could just ask you guys for.
And he would be
impressions you
glad
came-
to speak.
Any impressions you came away from, how much discussion you had around that piece, right? I mean, that's now the biggest
Yeah, that was,
piece. And
I was the liaison for DPW specifically. I was not the liaison. No, actually, I take that back. I was on Old South with Stephen, and we met with Mr. Burns. But going back to DPW, I advocate wholeheartedly all monies requested relevant to a DPW facility. I'm choosing my words carefully. In the past, I felt we didn't have the person in charge that we needed. Is that fair? my opinion.
We have someone who's focusing on the infrastructure in a more
Professional manner. Yeah, very much so. And I will be the first to say, of those who have looked at any of the Capcom meetings in the past, I've always felt that we have done a poor job on buying rolling stock and maintaining it, covering it, keeping it together. Why buy a fixed asset?
I'm actually good on that one. I think we've spent a lot of time on
Yeah.
it, and I know where you feel, and it makes a lot of sense. I was actually asking about the Old South Road improvements,
Oh, okay.
and wondering when we might hear more about that, or how much process you guys went through on that.
Yeah, you probably want, we had a good session with Mr. Burns, Stephen and I. You don't want my opinion, because my opinion is probably far from what's reality right now, so I think you'd want to get someone else's thoughts.
So you want to hear more about that?
Yeah, my
Okay.
particular concern
That's fine.
is there enough money against that, and were decisions made getting to the number that you subsequently approved before that, almost like our school conversation, where people feel pressure to sit on that number before it got to you in a way that would be interesting for us to hear about. Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, I would say, without getting in trouble myself, that the school and Old South Road is night and day in the reasons why we should, and the number of years that we should rectify things. I look at, well, I'm going to give you my personal opinion, which is not really relevant. So,
Yeah, no,
I think what,
my metaphor was more process than it was comparing the merit of them, or.
I mean, we spent time
I
going
think
over.
Chris is concerned about whether we've underestimated Old South Road because
Yeah,
people are artificially keeping the price down for whatever reason, either getting approval or could be any number of
Yeah,
reasons.
it's the same spirit of the conversation of what did you.
Right.
So I don't know when the best
Right.
time to learn anything. Thank you for
Is that,
my thoughts clear, Dave. I appreciate it. I don't know.
Well, I don't
when the
think
best way
Mike
to
would
learn
be at
anything
any operational meeting, so I'm not sure where your best answer would come from.
would you guys just take a quick look at this before Saturday, and maybe we can just tuck it into the, it's in the warrant. So it's in for 14 and change, or 14 straight up?
there's no number in the.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, in here, yeah.
It would ultimately be in the recommendation.
So why don't we see in your town administration thing, if you could spend a few minutes, see if that gets us to where we want. If not, then we'll just schedule something before we go forward. So, anyway. Any other questions for these guys? A quick recap, Brian, on what's in the town, in the warrant. I know we all have a copy of it. Hasn't been approved yet by the selectmen, but, or Libby, whoever wants to do the recap. So what capital projects are standalone that have to be voted?
Old South Road,
Okay.
DPW, the allocation for the design, stormwater improvement,
Right.
Sparks Avenue, Sparks Avenue is a separate one too, I believe. Memory serves me correctly. And Harbor Master Building. There are those are the
5 debt exclusions, and then we're going back and forth with the board about capital exclusions.
Okay. The number on the capital exclusions, or just what to include? You're going to do a 1 point something capital exclusion, right? Okay. And then the rest will come out of free cash?
come out of free cash.
Transfers and,
Appropriation, reallocations, one time, and tax rate,
Okay.
and so on and so forth. But yeah.
so a couple of numbers here stick out at me. One is that the fire department's got virtually no requests. I'm assuming that Mr. Murphy comes up to speed, that number will change, or do you think that we are going to go a few years here without having to invest more in the fire department?
I think in the 10-year plan, we have additional stuff. So in 19, he's starting to replace the SCBA's, which is a 3-year phased project, Mr. Chairman.
Right, but it's 25, 26 before he gets to serious numbers. In the past, we've had pretty big numbers earlier every year.
You guys had some recent large replacements
Yeah.
in the last 3 to 5 years of trucks.
So this may not be a half bad look at what we,
It may not, and plus he's, we won't have too much maintenance.
Okay. You know, the big number obviously that jumps out is sewers, $220 million over 10 years.
And I would add to that, the next 3 years, you know,
Is $220 million
Yeah.
itself.
just a short window is like, yikes.
And so, you guys obviously did this before South Beach Street, but I guess in talking with David and all of that, how reasonably funded do you think we are for capital with our sewer system?
Do we have any idea what the costs are going to be?
Well, take South Beach
Yeah.
out of it here,
Yeah.
but I mean, you know, is this another one, I guess Chris would say, or people sitting on the number to keep it low?
I don't sense that. Peter?
I think we have David Gray is the best person that we have on the job. And I wasn't in the room when they bifurcated DPW and sewer, but I would say because of the plates looked full going down, they needed that management. Once again, I wasn't part of that discussion. I also feel that, our system, and you can't not think about South Beach Street. And the reason why these numbers were in the budget well ahead of that problem. A lot of our systems and infrastructure they are archaic and do need some replacement. You'll see those words. We also want to map all of our systems. I think we spoke about that a few meetings ago, Dave, when you asked me about CMOM. We need as-built. We need to know where every valve, every manhole, every catch basin. We have to eliminate a lot of the infiltration of waters that should not be in sewer, get them out, keep them out, because everything we put into the sewer plant and pump to C Street, we're spending money to pump that infiltrated water, and that comes from years of, hey, let's just tie in. Oh, by the way, why not? And those days are over. Just the amount of water that was flowing out in that, with the infiltration, you could probably use another sewer plant itself. So there's a lot of thought into these projects. And I will say in these projects, probably more so than the numbers, because the numbers, the learning curve on what just happened is going to help going forward based on, what they find. I know forensically, not to speak out of turn, it's going to take maybe a month or two before they even realize. But we, as a collective community, now I'm really bandstanding, have to resolve what's in front of us and not worry about why it broke at the present time, but to get it up and running anew. And I think from this committee and Finance Department and Capcom and whoever else, when we fix these things, they should be fixed right the first time. Let's not move the dirt pile 3 times and end up where we were with another existing condition. So I think it's going to take some due diligence of all of the groups and all of the volunteers, including this group right here, to make sure that we do it right. Thank you for the
And I think
community.
there's a welcome commitment to collaboration among DPW, sewer, and water,
Absolutely.
so that they're working together instead of one group going in, doing something, and then
Absolutely.
the next year it's opened up for something
We would
else.
hope that would be the case.
Well,
We're all the same
we're
team.
seeing a welcome
And we have,
commitment to collaboration.
we have some great people on those areas, Chuck and Rob and David.
Yep.
It was good to see.
It was a breath of fresh air.
Right.
Water also has been instrumental in the most recent thing as well. And they've been
Good.
good about coordinating future projects so that we don't do it all piecemeal. I think a number of these items in the 10-year for sewer are also placeholders.
Yeah.
And the actual number, is probably not that. Like, I'm just looking at, Hummock Pond North sewer's 30 million. That number is a placeholder. And it's gonna be refined as we go forward.
Question. If we take a look at, so if we look at this is very helpful seeing the 10-year view, and obviously the closer we are to now, it's more clear, but we jumped from 90 million to 120 million. numbers jump, because it seems like, okay, it didn't make it in this year, so boom, like our island home, some very expensive things are hitting next year that more than likely won't. So I'm just trying to get a sense of, is this, are we pushing water in front of the bow here?
Well, to some extent we are, because, I mean, our island home didn't get funded. So
Right.
that's, and prior capital, Nantucket sewers were on that didn't get funded. So, I mean, there is $80 million that was here and now,
Okay, so it doesn't
to
just
some
go-
extent,
okay.
sure. That said, also some what's a priority today may not be a priority in 2 years, or we figured out another way to solve it or whatever. But I think the real challenge is what are, there are some known knowns here. We may not know the actual dollars, but those are, to me, those are the things, is we look out over 10 years that are important to identify. So so yes, we do have placeholders on some of these things. To me, it's more important not what the number is, but that we sort of get to kind of the right year when they're going to hit. Because this is a pretty, it's a big capital, set of requests over 10 years. And in the past, we've had a challenge with people not necessarily at the department level spending enough time on what is in their capital program or needs to be in their capital program. So, you might have a very skimpy program when in fact, the next year it's a big one, and they just didn't bother to spend the time to inform. And that's why I think the process you guys have gone through is, there's a lot more integrity to the process this year than there has been.
Jason, I know that with the BOS, your strategic plan too is coming through closure where there's some finality in pulling that into, the SIP or the FinCom, and I mean, that's our goal, is to work as three strong groups and then working with finance department and admin. So that's going to solidify some of those future numbers too, or projects, excuse me.
A lot of people laugh at the strategic plan, we haven't really done it, or this type of thing for the BOS level. Obviously, this is new to me as well, but, Chuck and Rob sat in our first strategic planning meeting the whole time. We talked a lot about transportation. It was kind of, besides housing, our top two items. I could just see them writing down, and this is what they came back with. This is what we're talking about, and town administration. So I wasn't surprised at transportation or DPW numbers.
Any other questions? Final comments from? I applaud you guys for, I think you worked harder than we worked to get here, so it's greatly appreciated.
Here, I'm going to reports to
Yeah.
quick.
It's too bad Steve isn't here to take the bow.
Yeah, so,
Did he know?
He set the meeting.
yeah. He did.
He
Yeah.
did.
We did something in
Okay. Any comments, Wendy?
No, they're, well, hopefully, he's coming to BOS on Wednesday.
Yeah.
To do something very similar.
Yeah. Brian, any comments? Okay. Financeable?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Great. All right. Thanks. Since my computer died on me, and I don't have, these aren't energized. Yes, you got it. Warrant articles. Let's pull up. Everybody got a copy of the warrant. Libby, do you think there's going to be changes on Wednesday, or is the board going to approve it as you've got it together?
Well, let me pull it up. Ready to take you through it quickly?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. You got it.
Let me just take you through.
Okay.
So, the first, I'll try to do this really fast. Article 1, receipt of reports, annual regular article. 2, unpaid bills, same thing. 3 is a revolving account article. We are adding a revolving account to, and the idea here would be that, pretty much as it says, funds received for town roadway projects from either private contractors or even other departments like water or sewer would go into this fund, and then when it's time, DPW would coordinate the repaving of the road. So it's not done in a piecemeal manner. Example, Prospect Street. Avoid that going forward.
Be nice.
Article 4.
Do you have a guess as to what you're gonna fund the revolver at in year one?
We wouldn't fund it with anything, other than the fees that come in. But I guess we'll have to, establish a, spending limit in Article 4, the next article, so we'll have to figure out what that would be. We'll have to talk to Rob about what typically comes in and what, sewer and water projects that are opening roads might be on the horizon for 19, so we can make sure that they have included, like I'm making this up, but say there's a water/sewer project happening and they've included $1 million for the paving. We would ideally put that money into this fund and then pay the road work out of it when it's time to do it.
Okay, so sewer, in this example, sewer or water would not be exempt from having to contribute.
Correct, and it would be part of their project.
Yeah, and how about people that do street cuts for houses and stuff like?
Same thing, when Toscana's fee would go, or the cost for their road cut to be repaired would go into here, and then when it's time to repair, DPW would oversee the repair of it, instead of the individual contractors.
Right. And are those fees adequate to cover the cost of?
We'll confirm that with Rob, but the idea is that they would be adequate, yes.
That would be great.
So that's reminding me we're going to have to spend on that. Article 4 is the spending limits for all the revolving accounts. You know, this is an annual article. Same with 5, same with 6, same with 7. 8, we're talking about now. 9, I don't think we have their recommendations yet. Well, that's
Where-
They're making a presentation for their recommendations, I believe it was the 22nd.
correct.
Yeah, I was gonna, Denise, when are they? Okay, so they're gonna be ready on the 22nd. Okay.
General fund capital, we just talked about, Article 10. 11, enterprise funds operations, you're talking about that very soon, annual article. Same with 12, same with 13. 14 would be any prior year articles that we would use for any particular purpose that were unexpended. It's an annual article. 15, okay, here we're getting into the standalones now for the demonstration. So 15 would be Old South, 16 would be design for the public works facility, 17 would be renovation of marine department building, 18 would be the stormwater, 19 Sparks Ave. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26 are all annual articles. Nothing unusual about any of them for 19. 27 is the appropriation for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The number is highlighted because the selectmen need to confirm it. This is the number they previously talked about, so they'll firm it up on Wednesday. 28 is an article that the airport asked for.
Before you go on, is there any comment on 27? Are we comfortable, would we like to make a different recommendation to the selectmen, not that they have to follow through with our recommendation?
Are you asking us how we're gonna vote?
No. I mean, I can say that not in this meeting a year ago, we asked that the number be reduced. And I just, I mean, we had them in the other day.
Is there
Draw your
any-
own conclusions about, whether you think they've got their act together or not.
Is there any possibility of the question you asked them, actually, would that be added in here? The returning of the money?
Oh, yeah, you didn't hear, you weren't here for that one.
Well, did they come in and ask you to return the money?
I asked if they would
Yes.
return the money.
Oh, return the prior one?
No,
No.
this
This
six,
money
This
for
money.
claims passes.
if
If
the,
they get their, if they get the land bank
Oh.
tax, if it funds before
Yeah,
July,
one said no,
Tucker and Sully were on board.
we were on board with it. Linda didn't like it. No, I mean, I just guess, that last year we gave 500,000. I think the recommendation of the selectmen was 500,000. I think they started at $1 million. I mean, I'm not gonna die on this one, but, I just,
I'm not gonna vote for any motion to give any dollars, to recommend giving any dollars. I recognize that probably is not the sense of the room, but I think from, in terms of.
Actually, the more I think about it, I think I have to recuse myself. Like, Habitat's a beneficiary, so I shouldn't say.
it's like you're off the hook, is that what you're
telling
step away from your table.
Just the light bulb just went on.
Well, I'm not trying to make, pick a fight or whatever, but,
Could there be a note that says we recommend that they return it once they're,
well, we could certainly, absolutely, we can do that. I was just, my question actually
Should we-
is 600,000, would we like to send a message, which I'm happy to do on Wednesday night, and just say to the selectmen, the finance committee thinks it ought to be $1 million or 250,000 or whatever, but, and if nobody wants to pick that, if people
It's
don't.
hard to give any number without them really having a plan.
That's it's a chicken or egg discussion, or the catch-22. We don't have any money, so we can't have a plan. Well, you can't have money until you have a plan.
Right.
So,
I don't think that's a chicken before the egg. I think
No,
that's
I-
what
No,
every
I know, but
reasonable
that's
person who
what-
lends money asks you for.
no, I agree.
You know.
I'm just saying that was the discussion, and it
And-
seemed like there could be a plan in absent of any available funding, so then you had something to specifically ask for.
And this is where we were last year at this time.
Okay.
We asked them for a plan as a condition of making a $500,000 recommendation.
A rough idea, at least personally, what I was looking for was an idea of how many units you get per
Sure.
$100,000 or per sum of money. And the answer is the marketplace changes, we need a bunch of money, an unspecified sum to be able to react to opportunities that come up. So is 600,000 enough, or is it 6 million they need before they can act, or is it some number in between, and also somehow to be in the middle of conversations before they progress to the stage where a developer can act?
Not to mention, I think the sheer, I'm sorry, but the sheer ridiculousness of that statement, that the market changes so much. So that, every builder is just flying by the seat of their pants. That's crazy. This is crazy talk. That side didn't prepare, and they didn't, because the subdivision that they proposed was purchased by us over 5 months ago. And not only that, we had it under agreement almost a year ago, and it went through the planning board. There's no secret here. I have a hard time recommending anyone to these. It's hard for me too. Trust me.
They put that presentation together after the fact. They had that, and they were discussing it
Right, but
while negotiations were happening.
I think that
that
put
was
it
just,
What if we gave them funding conditional on you can only use the funding to create an actual plan?
they did.
I was just gonna say, it's a recommendation to the selectmen,
Right,
just so we don't
right.
have
Well, I
the
meant,
force
yeah,
of,
right.
They did create or fund the housing production plan. So there's 120 some odd pages of recommendations about how to create units.
Okay.
And
Chris, was that the document you were looking at?
It was, you can find
Yeah.
that, you can find that on the town website. It's an interesting.
it's actually a good document.
I don't agree with everything in it, so I would certainly make it clear, I don't agree with everything that's in the document, but it is a good read, it's well prepared. I would say, I have a second reason for, beyond all the reasons that were just stand here. My other reason is I'm racking my brains trying to figure out how to drive the selectmen, the CPC, the Affordable Housing Trust into some kind of alignment. And one of the few things I've come up with is to say no to this and put it back into the Affordable Housing Trust to try to get the selectmen and the CPC to have that conversation. Maybe that, I'd love to know town meeting's will on that, and if town meeting thinks that would be it. So one of the great ways I get to that is to say no to this. But again, I don't know, in terms of feedback to the selectmen, I guess you can, there's not unanimity maybe on this board in terms of supporting it.
It's tough because I think, I'm, whether I have to recuse myself here or not, Housing Nantucket would stand to benefit from this money because they'll write them a grant and say, we need money and you've got some money. So, in a lot of ways this can be, I highly doubt they would use this to actually build something. I think they'd probably pass it through to people, to other entities who use the money, and have infrastructure in place to use the money. So that's my suggestion for a comment would just be a sense of dissatisfaction. We wish there's better communication with this board who's supposed to be heading up the housing, and they've kind of come, we're not going to stop funding housing initiatives because we realize that this money is not just going to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, it's going to passing through to several other
Even
entities.
of itself, just having that as the plan would be a
Right.
improvement. We'd at least know what they want to do with the money.
But the problem is, the identifiable things that they have allocated money to, Housing Nantucket, Habitat, these closing costs, those tend to be smaller chunks of the funding that they've received, and they've got this big credit line, or not
Right.
credit line, just cash balance kind of.
I mean, I felt like what they were saying to us is they want $2.5 million to be able to buy a piece of property when it becomes available. And they had no plan for how that was going to happen.
Or 4 or 5 million, or some amount of
But
money
they
for
would-
a price of property that we haven't identified.
Some sort of, but their threshold numbers seem to be $2.5 million, right? That
For the one piece that they identified and weren't able to buy.
Correct.
But who knows what's going to come up in the future, would it cost more for the mountain property? But then the problem is, they're not staffed or otherwise equipped to actually manage a project. So we have this clearinghouse for funds that go to organizations like Habitat who actually put the dollars to work. But then we have Habitat and Affordable Housing Trust in other areas in competition for money, like at CPC. So that's, what is the role of Affordable Housing Trust Fund? This is a conversation that was dormant for a while, but Affordable Housing Trust Fund had open board positions for years, and it was almost disbanded entirely. And now they're getting money, but they still don't, have a defined role in the process of how to address the housing issues.
Well, if the legislative bill passes, they're going to get a lot of money.
And we still won't have
How scary is that?
What does the fund do? Because as Tucker described, they're not a developer, so they can't actually dig a hole or build a house. At least not yet. At least not with a budget, which they didn't show us last week, which would have to have professionals hired in all the areas to make these things happen. So.
But at some point, and Henry, I'm going to ask you this question, you sort of saw them as a bank of some kind, where people could go and borrow money from them.
Yeah, I think if you look at them as an organization, they're pretty flexible in what they can do. I know that Housing Nantucket certainly looks at it as not a bank, but a source of funding. It's hard wearing two hats at once.
Yeah.
One says, don't give them anything. You challenge them for a year. I personally sent emails to members of that organization suggesting this, that, and not building. Just, here's an idea, and nothing. Just, let's get coffee. Okay, great, when are you available? Nothing. And it's hard to do that. I guess unless you say you want them to use it to give to other organizations, but once you give them the money, I think we've been told very clearly we can do whatever we want with it, right? That's the message they've sent last year. was, you have no control over us. I don't know.
It seems unusual to give money to someone who doesn't have a clear role and a way of allocating the funds.
And I don't think that we can, as a committee, could be, well, I mean, I'm sure that, you know, the mob can say whatever it wants, but for anyone actually paying attention can really say we haven't given them ample opportunity,
Well, they're gonna get,
right? I mean,
yeah, they're getting CPC money and they're getting, and then the town's putting in money for Wade Drive for 6FG, so.
I'm just saying there's been ample time and opportunity for them to prove what their plan is.
Wait, how does the wage drive thing work again? Because isn't Affordable Housing Trust Fund money going to that?
Yes.
And then the town's giving money to
400,000.
Affordable Housing Trust Fund to go back to that?
Yeah, it's-
All right. Just want to make sure I did that in the
You
proper
ever
circle.
been out in like New York City where those guys have shells? You kind of feel like that's,
I'll bring 3 cups.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I sympathize with the members of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund board. It is difficult to act without money, but, you know, wearing this hat, it's difficult to give money when there's no plan for how to use it. So, you know, on the one hand, all the money the town can afford should go to housing issues, but if it's not going to the right place, it's not going to get used. And we have unused funds right now, you know, that could be better spent. So,
Yeah.
so on that side of the coin, give 0. And be ready to act on a new plan.
And I would argue that they have the wherewithal to make a
They've got
plan.
money to do something,
They have a
maybe not a
full-time
massive
year-round
increase,
salary
I think.
for someone just to think up of housing plans. I mean, what is that? What's that for? What's the levy direct? I mean, the housing director. What do you do when, you know? Isn't this one of the? I'm just trying to think. Like when we're talking about this job, what's the responsibility?
Well, there's a job description, we could, you mean Tucker's job?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could send you the job description if you want, he's doing it.
Okay. Is this not underneath his job description to figure out a plan for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund?
The Affordable
Maybe the
Housing
board.
Trust Fund is a very independent group, and, I think from time to time, I've heard them tell them to, they can have it.
Okay. Well, because last year, I mean, when we were having this discussion, I was remembering they were saying, well, we didn't have any staff to write for grants. That was like one of their pieces of feedback. But they had money to hire staff, but they didn't. And now we're in the same position a year later. That's kind of my question for their board is why didn't, when challenged to hire staff and given money to do so, you still waited a whole year and then still presented a half-baked plan again. If housing wasn't such a hot button issue, and let's just say the Wanacombat Water Company came in here singing this tune, I mean, God, we'd rip them apart.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we did turn it.
We already did,
Didn't
right?
work so well.
No, I'm just anybody.
the mob got
You know,
it.
hey, who did we turn down recently? The fire department.
What?
Even though I'm recused, I'll just, I mean, just looking at their budget for next year, I mean, if you took out the land acquisition number, which is $722,000, they've got the closing cost assistance program, which does operate. They've got the one that I can't talk about because it's, you know, but, you know, there's like $200,000 or $300,000. They say, well, fine, they've got things that are operating and they seem to be, you know, good programs for the town. But this sort of, let's build up our piggy bank.
So if we were to handicap whether this legislation is going to pass this year, fiscal year,
We can't.
No.
I don't think it would.
Yeah, I don't think it.
is there something systemically wrong with it that it's never going to pass?
That it's the home rule petition, right?
Yeah,
That's
I don't
systemically
think so.
wrong.
It's gone farther at this point than anybody ever thought it would, and that is in no small part due to Tucker's efforts. And a lot of other people who've gone up to State House.
Mhm.
It's political. I don't think there's anything wrong with the wording. I think it's a matter of getting the necessary support.
There's also the possibility it's a bad idea.
It's a bad idea to give money to people who don't know how to spend the money. It's not a bad idea to generate a sustainable source of revenue to fix a problem that we all agree is a problem. Now, deciding what the right way to attack the problem is a separate issue from, is the money getting to the right group of people to address the problem? But we have both of those problems at the same time. So,
Nicely summarized.
Yeah.
That's spot on.
so it's difficult to say if any amount of money is right or if this amount of money is right. You know, to say you need the 600,000 to couple with 625 we're getting from other sources to make up that $1,250,000 that we think we might get from this tax in the future, that doesn't make sense. I mean, initially when we talked about this housing tax, it was a full percent, so we would have been looking for $2.5 million a year. You know, why isn't that the number they're coming in and asking for? That's the number they wanted, until some local realtors said, we'll fight you less hard if you go for 0.5% instead of a full percent. You know, I mean, it's not a rationale for how much money you need, because we might get that money next year.
I'm mindful that our time is going here. What's the sense of what we want to do?
So Libby, you think it's a slim chance that this is gonna pass?
Well, in this legislative session, I don't know.
What if it doesn't pass in this legislative session? It's dead.
No,
If it doesn't pass by July, we would have to revote the whole thing
Well,
again.
it's on the
Yeah, but
warrant.
we do it anyway. We're doing it every year,
Try
revoting.
to paint a much rosier picture of us.
Yeah.
He did.
Maybe he's.
Yes, so did I.
I might be more on the outside of it, he's deeper on the inside. I just,
And Linda said she had some inside information based on sales report.
I would be very surprised if it passed in this legislative session. I hope I'm wrong.
So would you like to make do you want to just leave it the way it is? Do we want to make I guess we could recommend more money, but I don't get the sense that that's where we're going. Do we want to recommend less money? Do we want to recommend no money? I mean, notwithstanding, excuse me, Joe, but notwithstanding, I think it seems like there's enough consensus that we don't want to go. We would like to make some sort of statement about this, and if the statement has to be in terms of, we don't think you should give any money, or $250,000 or whatever. I think you're not out of left field on this.
I'm going to say 0. I mean, we challenged him a year ago. They failed that challenge.
I mean, it would then become up to the selectmen whether they wanted, to leave it where it is, or they could.
But then it'll come back with some number or a number, and then we craft our motion. Whatever the pleasure of the board is.
But is there going to be a selectman at town meeting who's going to stand up and say, we want to, we support fully giving and funding this money, and then the entire, similar to what happened last year, right?
Well, I'm sure that could happen. I mean, I think one of the things that we should think about, and we started talking a little bit about it, is that when we make comments, oftentimes we just make these pithy little comments, that we actually ought to be a little bit more thoughtful with the reasons, so there's a little bit more insight into.
It's a lengthy discussion to have in the comments section of the warrant.
I understand, but, it's better than saying, we recommend a reduced amount of money because we don't think they've got a plan together. That might have been the way we might have said it last year, or prior years.
Yeah, but it's a difficult position for us, and probably certainly more so for the board of selectmen. They've identified housing
Right.
for maybe the third year in a row as the number one priority. For the board of selectmen to support our recommendation, should it be to not fund or appropriate less said or give them a really good reason, and I'm not sure that we've formulated that good reason.
Well, I mean, they're getting $400,000 from CPC.
It's turning around and going to the town.
Well, that's actually prior years reissue, but I'm just thinking about the fiscal 19. I mean, you could come up with arguments that between the CPC and $200,000 from the town, that's a $600,000 commitment to affordable housing that more than covers their existing programs and puts a little more money in the bank for developmental opportunities. And we think at this time, while we're waiting for the home rule thing to go through, that's an adequate funding. I mean, there's no science behind those numbers, but it float off my tongue.
It sounds nice.
Yeah.
So you're saying, I don't have the budget in front of me, you're saying that the budget they presented, all of their programs that are in operation could be funded without this additional $600,000. So this $600,000, is that what would be going towards that
Purchase.
Dry
powder
building of
that they
their
want?
dry powder.
I think, they've got the closing cost at 150. They've got a grant to Habitat for 150. They've got 5 year program with covenants, $500,000. I find that hard to believe, but I suppose that's a transit. That's finding a market rate property and buying it down. Right? I mean, it seems to me $600,000 plus what they've got on the balance sheet is they got more than enough money to do what they want to do, short of spending $2.5 million for property.
Sort of that unicorn property that comes up that happens to match the amount of money you have.
No, because I think Chris makes a good point. I mean, while I'm as supportive of affordable housing as anybody, they have not adequately described what their program is to identify a property and how much they think they might need and how they're going to do it.
And I went and spoke on behalf of this home rule petition at the State House 2 years ago. I believe in the need for the sustainable source of revenue, but the one-off funding is not the same, even if it's the same amount of money. If you can't go to a lender and say, I've got this money all the time, so you can put down 20%, 30%, and finance the rest, then the money doesn't stretch as far.
Right.
You can act on this property, on this project. So I think that's where the logic, for me, falls
Fails.
apart when you say, we might get this amount of money next year. Right, but unless you know you're going to get it for the next 20 or 30 years, it doesn't work.
Right. You can't pay a mortgage without a paycheck.
Right.
That recommendation of 0 does not suggest that it is worded in a way that Joe, I think, summarized it nicely to say it's not against affordable housing. That's not the issue. The issue is the vehicle. The vehicle with funding isn't going to get us there with what we know today. Until the vehicle steps up, it makes no sense to invest further than is needed for the outlook that's currently proposed. For something more elegant than I would say.
Well, I think that's the way to do it, and also to identify the other monies that are coming from different arms of the town that are going towards various housing-related issues, which includes the full-time housing consultant position and other things, including 6 grants.
Okay. I think that's reasonable too.
Is there a number of people?
0.
Not a 0%, but now it's getting close to. I got to be careful. So.
Comfortable with 0.
Henry?
I'm comfortable with 0.
Stephen?
I don't have the budget up there. I want to make sure we're not shortchanging any of the programs that are actually.
Peter?
I'm looking at that right now.
I mean, reality is we're talking about 6 months, right? In between,
Well, based upon what we heard last week, yes. Based upon, maybe a more realistic assessment.
right? But that's the
But-
group that came in and made a presentation
Made their
to us.
pitch, absolutely.
I mean, even after I left last week, I thought $600,000 for 6 months, it doesn't really seem worth it, right? Based on the track record,
Well, it wouldn't even be for 6 months. I mean, because they can't get their money until the
Till
1st of July.
or first of July, okay. And by
And
then,
the legislative session ends the 30th of June, I
Right.
think.
so it's sort of a moot point. There can be no land acquisition between now and July 1st. Doesn't matter how much money they have.
Not at the speed at which they move. All right, well,
They can do everything but the land acquisitions, just like you
Yep.
said, there's not more detail to dig through. And there's no land that's on the docket to be acquired. It's not like they have a purchase contract that needs to be funded.
so Libby, will you make sure on Wednesday night that I'm recognized on this item? You've got a smile. You've got a smile on your face. We'll see where it goes.
Okay, so the next, ready to go on?
Yeah, please, thank
The
you.
next two, 28 and 29, are special purpose stabilization funds for accrued liabilities of employees. So the airport started this, and the idea is that for longtime employees who are going to be retiring at some point in the near future, they would have some kind of a fund in place to pay their accrued liabilities. So we thought that was a good idea, so we wanted to do it for the town employees as well. We're not recommending any funding for it at this point, just setting up the fund. And I don't remember if airport had a number. Were they gonna put some?
They're gonna give, we're still working through the, they're more than likely gonna take it from the fuel revolver. And they were still doing
Oh,
their
yeah.
analysis of what they wanna put in.
So,
That'll be in the motion.
when I was a newbie on the committee, I was surprised that there were no accruals for people departing. And I was reminded or told at the time that that's the way municipal accounting works. Normally, this would have been accrued. It's a cash charge, but it seems like we're concerned about not having enough cash, which I don't think is our problem.
Whoever told you that would have been incorrect. It's accrued in the audit. In the audit for GAAP purposes, we do accrue it.
So why are we even dealing with it here?
Because we need a fund, we're putting a fund in place so that it doesn't become a budgetary impact value. So that we could make a transfer from free cash into it. And we could pay it out during the year, if somebody left during the year, and then at the town meeting, you could ask to have that money come back to replenish the budget.
So it is a cash issue.
It would potentially be a cash issue, yes.
Because if you're making the accrual as part of,
Well, we don't technically make the accrual except on a GAAP basis, but we have an idea of what the value is, and it's a rather large number. So the goal is to start at some point to yearly put money away so that when we get to that point, it's not impact, it doesn't become a cash or a budgetary issue.
This is basically unused vacation.
It's unused vacation and any sick leave buyout according to the
so what gets, I mean, are you literally putting $500,000 into an account somewhere?
eventually we will start funding it, yeah. The special purpose stabilization fund would be where the money would go.
And you can't do it as just an entry?
No, I can't. It needs town meeting appropriation.
I've never understood this.
And
Neither
there
have
is- and then it can't,
And Denise doesn't understand it, and Chris doesn't understand
How
it.
can you
and-
accrue for vacation and then like not have the money to pay when somebody, I don't understand.
It mostly, has, I don't know, but it mostly has to do with when you're replacing the position.
Yeah.
So if I left today and the board hired a new person tomorrow, that vacation time is not worked into the two people,
We'd have to pay out your vacation,
right, and then.
and
start
we
making
should have been
those-
accruing for that over time.
Yeah, well, I don't, it's not something most towns do. So we
Accrue.
wanna- Right.
Yeah, well, okay.
I mean, it's because we're on a cash basis, so, in accounting, so if we can't budget
It's a
in the
modified
general
cash.
fund for it and then
It's a
reserve
program.
the money.
Yeah.
Because it just falls to free cash every year, so we don't have the ability to do like a private company do, would be to accrue the liability, carry the liability, and carry the ability to spend it. I don't have that. If I put $500,000 in the general fund budget for retirement payouts, and it didn't happen, that money just goes in
your way of doing the accrual,
This is our way of managing it like a private enterprise. How's that?
Oh, now I understand.
Well, that makes it crystal.
All right, okay, carry on, sorry.
Okay, 30 is another special stabilization fund for substance abuse prevention efforts. We've adopted the local option marijuana sales tax, and this would be how to spend it. And the issue that I need the board to sort of determine is what we've proposed here. They've had some discussion about this, specifically sort of what programs to fund, but also the percentage. You have to spend at least 25% of it. If you're gonna dedicate it, it has to be at least 25%.
Of the sales
But
tax.
we've put in 100, and they were having a little bit of discussion at the last meeting as to whether or not that would be too much.
I was gonna say, why would you put 100 in and
might be-
tie your hands, because you
Right.
probably can't.
You'd have to go back to town meeting to
Yeah.
change it. So that's a discussion point for the board. 31 is the renewal.
Sorry, is the board considering adding this money to what the Human Services Contract Review Committee allocates already?
I think so. Not replacing. Yeah.
That's right.
And Libby, would it be, for example, up to 50% to give yourself some leeway, or would you, instead of the 100%, so you would do an up to number rather than saying it must be 50% and then
I think you have to specifically identify a percentage.
it has to be fixed?
And then what happens to the money over that?
It would go to the general fund.
So if we allocated 50% into this fund, the other 50 just goes into the general fund?
And it would fall to, the-
And
it would be like any other.
It'd be available to
tax,
appropriate like
receipts.
any other taxes
Like,
in a year.
Did you check on, remember we spoke a little bit about the kicker on top of the 3% if you hosted a shop?
Yeah,
That was, Joanna, that was something you sent me that I talked to Brian about.
oh, as part of the agreements, yeah, I haven't actually looked at all the agreements to see what's in there, but I'm sure that that's part of the ongoing discussions, and I'm not sure if the agreements are finalized.
So would that money go into this fund?
Well, the
No,
question is
that would
whether,
go into the That would go into the general fund.
yeah. So there is a provision in addition to the 3% if you're a host, and there's a host agreement that you can actually increase the percentage.
What does that mean to be a host?
You got a shop in your town.
So as part of the host agreement, you can ask for payments.
The town as the host.
Yes. You can ask for payments that are not part of the 3%.
3%, up to an
So that
additional,
comes from the business as opposed to the consumer?
Yeah.
which we are doing in the post agreement for selling the Korean leaf.
so you've asked for additional money? Okay.
31 is the renewal of the Board of Health Septic System Betterment Loan Program. 32 is something the school requested, Special Education Reserve Fund, and I think this has to do with,
Mike talked about it the other day.
I'm not gonna really get into the citizen ones other than pointing
No.
out 33 is CPC, 34 is CPC. 35 is citizen. Okay, then we have zoning. Zoning was reviewed with the board by Andrew at their last meeting, and I'm sure they're gonna review these zoning articles again. I think they have hearings scheduled already for most, if not all of these. I'm not equipped to go and explain the zoning articles. They go town and citizen combined, they go through Article 53, which also has a sewer district map change in it. And the next few here, 54, 55, 56, 57 are all citizen articles having to do with sewer district map changes. 58 is a citizen article, 59, citizen, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. 65 is a town-sponsored article that would eliminate some of the wording, you can see it there in the article. It would basically bring the employees of the Airport Commission and Wanacoma Water into the town bylaw for the application of town policies. Has nothing to do with hiring or firing or anything like that. It has to do with making the policies consistent across the board. We've discussed this in an article like this maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It never made it into the warrant, but it's that. 66 authorizes the selectmen to establish a parking benefit district. And I'm not sure they've been talking about it. I think they all generally agree that this might be something to establish, but the starting point would be to authorize it. 67 is a citizen home rule. 68 is the resubmittal of a home rule petition to merge Wanacoma and Wisconsin, Nantucket Water and Sewer. Most recently, there were some legislative questions asked last week about it. It's still not approved by the legislature, and they came up with these questions last week that Brian and town council were working on. So if it passes before town meeting, then we only take any action. But if it doesn't, then we probably won't do something. 69 is rescinding, is a home rule petition to rescind a home rule petition that we already had approved, which is the Mosquito Control Project Act. And the reason for the rescinding is that this hasn't worked out the way we thought. I guess there was a lack of realization at the time when the original home rule petition was put forward as to just how much control the state has over the town's funds. You basically have to send them the money. They do bidding. They pay the bills for the mosquito control contract, and there's very little local control over how they structure the contract. And the Mosquito Control Commission pretty much recommended that it's just.
I was gonna say, do they give us any money?
No, we give them money.
This is a no-brainer.
Wisdom behind it and one person where it was open.
I think we hoped that we would get into a wider group for bidding purposes, and maybe there would be some amount of shared savings. But it's turned out that each control project, mosquito control project, is for very specific areas. So we're our own. So there isn't really one group that comes and does all the mosquito control.
Are they gonna let us out?
Probably. We've probably become
They're bigger.
their biggest mosquito at this point, because we haven't done anything they've told us to do.
Okay.
70 is the housing bank, and by the way, I was trying to find out while I was sitting here when the legislative session actually does end. It's July 31st, and I'm told by Senator Sear that formal sessions end July 31st, the meeting informal session through the rest of 2018, but nothing controversial will be passed. I asked him about the housing bank, and he said, yes, the housing bank is likely best to get done by July 31st, but I don't know if that means that's.
Yeah, well,
It's not done by then.
Right.
it's not gonna happen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so that goes on to 71 is a special act authorizing affordable housing covenants, which we approved last year. That was a zoning article in 2017, I think, or maybe even 16. It's just in again, so it hasn't passed yet. Okay, 72, 73, 74, and 75 all came in on the late side from planning, and it involved real estate conveyances between the land bank, Conservation Foundation, Wisconsin Trust. They're all mostly parcels held by the town that we would be authorized to transfer to those agencies. 70, that's 72, 73 continues our efforts to convey land from the county to the town. And every time we think we have all the county land identified, something else pops up because it wasn't shown on a plan or surface of a land court transaction or something like that. So this is just continuing, again, to convey items to town from the county. 74 involves conveying a portion of 264 Pulpus Road, which is part of the Pulpus Cemetery, to a private abutter in return for some land that they hold. It's basically a swap, apparently. The land, the cemetery commission proposed this, and I've asked Lee Saperstein to be at our meeting next Wednesday to explain it a little bit better. 75, I have not even read it yet. It came in late from Andrew, and I want to say that it has something to do with,
Roadway across
yes,
a lot of common property.
thank you. This may have to do with the Old South Road deeds. 76 is some open space transfers, that authorizes the selectmen to make some open space transfers to the land bank. 17, real estate acquisition transfer, that would relate to the Old South Road boiler improvements. 78 would be a companion article to the home rule petition that authorizes transfers between land bank, conservation foundation, and Sponsored Trust. 79, I think is the companion article to that, home rule petition 73. 80 is the companion article to the Pulpus Road home rule petition. 81, 82, 81 and 82 came from Andrew last week. I cannot even begin to explain them. He says that it came up in somewhere where between the town and property owners, somebody must be applying for some kind of roadway improvement, I don't know, some kind of roadway improvement or not roadway improvement, some sort of real estate thing with the planning board, and we found that the right-of-way line doesn't match up to a plan.
So, corresponding with John Brescher about the real estate committee and looking at these articles, he conveyed back to me that all they were going to do was look at whether the prices were appropriate, and were not giving an opinion about whether this was a transaction that ought to be entered into by the town. And I thought that the purpose of that committee was in fact to look at appropriateness of prices, but also the appropriateness of the town entering into the transaction. So am I misunderstanding what the role of that committee is?
I'd have to go back and
And
look.
if I am, who makes the determination besides the planning board and or the petitioners that this is a transaction that the town ought to enter into?
Well, theoretically, the selectmen do that after some executive session discussion. So this is just an authorization article,
I understood, but, I mean, we know that presupposes the selectmen are fully conversant with the issues.
they hear from Andrew about it at a board meeting from the consultant, is basically. I don't think we even have a policy committee really that is that into the warrant in the first place, but I will double check with Travis.
It's I'm less concerned about them going into the warrant, but once they're in the warrant, who's providing the advice to the town? And that's what I thought that the real estate committee was chartered to do after we had some problems with some land that got conveyed and nobody had looked. Yeah.
I think the real estate committee's role has more been confined to after town meeting, once the authorization is in place, determining whether or not the values are appropriate and whether or not it's a decent transaction for the town. They haven't been doing that until after the meeting.
So I've heard from at least one selectman that they felt that this is something that the finance committee ought to do, which quite frankly, I don't think it's the province of the finance committee. And that's why I thought that the real estate committee was put in place to do that. Obviously, the selectmen don't have to take the advice of the real estate committee or the finance committee, but, you know, it seems like we run into these little holes, particularly the way these yard sale language is written, which is the property then has to be conveyed, or first refusal goes to the neighbor. So there isn't even an open market, transaction that could take place. So, I mean, I'm not picking on Mr. Cohen, but, you know, I'm looking at Sandwich Road. I would have absolutely no idea. Stephen might, or Henry might. I mean, I know where Sandwich Road is, but I have no idea what the implications are of doing that conveyance.
Behind Don Allen Ford. It's behind Don Allen Ford.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can tell me if I'm
No,
I'm making, you know, I don't want to make too much out of the issue, and maybe I am. So the rest of you can tell me to shut up if you want. But,
generally, it seems that Andrew explains the articles at the board meeting, and they either say, sounds okay, or need more information, or not doesn't matter. And he's the explainer of what the implications of the plans are.
okay.
Glad I'm not on the real estate committee. Sounds like you don't
Well,
have any role.
they get involved when it comes time to do something. If they haven't been getting involved, it's just put it on.
I mean, John, that was John's answer. He said it's up to the town to decide what they want to, to the town meeting to decide what they want to do with it. And my only comment is that, town meeting is being asked to make fundamentally an uninformed decision, other than the fact that the selectmen may.
Well, I'm confused. So the real estate committee doesn't make a recommendation before it's on the warrant, which, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's what we do. But don't they now, that it's on the warrant, make a recommendation?
No.
They wait till after town meeting does something, and then they say, hey, you might want to set the price at this or that.
Yes, when it is time for it to come up before then, yes, that's what it is. Andrew may have a written summary of all of these, which you probably don't know yet, and it might be in the selectmen's packet for this week. So we'll find out if there is one and get back to you, because that might answer some of this.
I mean, does Andrew make the recommendation? Who's making the
It's pretty
recommendations on these citizens articles?
The citizen articles, that's a good question. I haven't even looked at.
I mean, that was really my question to John. I thought that that's what the real estate committee did on, we dealt with those, because we've got a bunch of them sitting here.
I think Andrew will weigh in on them. He has typically done that.
Okay.
So the citizen real estates are 83 through 88, and then 89 and 90 are annual stabilization grant for cash. Then we've got the warrant, which has all which has the non-binding public and advisory question about the coastal beaches.
Yep.
And then the debt exclusions, and we're going to be going over with the board on Wednesday, what they want to put on for capital exclusions.
very nice. Okay, comments on the warrant? Good. Mr. Dickler, we have, I'm just looking at my notes, we actually have already taken a vote on your article, which is not to adopt. So that will, and we talked about adding. I'm sorry, take no. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. To take no action, and we were going to add a comment to that to be formulated sometime in the future. So, anyway, I didn't want to leave you with the impression that that was a decision to come.
I had read the minutes.
Okay. Well, good. Thank you. Okay, so Thursday, this is our week. You guys are ready? We're ready?
We're having a prep meeting on Wednesday with our staff, and we plan to have.
Great. So Thursday, yes.
Actually, an administrative note, I don't know whether Julia, there were a couple of us, 2 or 3, groups of 2 or
Right.
3 who have sort of assignments for the various sections. And we kind of better, I don't know if we're meeting in this room on Thursday, but would it be free for maybe 30 minutes in advance so that we can all get here early and chat about our assignments? Whether Julia, whether you can check whether the room might be available at 3:30, and if not, is there some other space in the building that we could use for the 30 minutes or so?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, if you want to do it right before the meeting, the other is you might be able to secure that little conference room right inside the door of the town building. But that presupposes people are in town.
Right. And then have it, get out here.
It makes sense to
Yeah,
do it here.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do it right ahead of the meeting, it makes sense to do it.
3:30 and, I mean, if this room's clear, that would be perfect.
Okay. Anything else? Would you like to make that motion? Thank you. Thank you.
I thought I just did.
I thought you were asking it, I thought you were doing it with a question mark at the end.
More enthusiastically, motion to adjourn.
Joe, if I am able to, you don't have to get it on.
Actually, that's also.
Are you around? Your schedule? That's the time. Can we get together?